Sacramento Kings is Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, as part of our Odyssey platform, joins us here. Matt, great to have you. First of all, let's get to the important business. How's the baby? The baby's still sleeping through the night? You still got some sanity left?
Sanity is still there. Baby's sleeping, but I will say, D-Lo, I'm coming for your lifestyle. I'm here to steal it from you and do it better because now with the new job, I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning every single morning, starting work at 3, and I had a vegetable today. So I'm coming for your lifestyle. I'm right on your heels, and we have like the same physique. So we're basically neck and neck there.
Let's point out a couple of quick things. 2:30, that's not my lifestyle. That's crazy person talk. 2, I've never seen Matt George eat a vegetable. Matt eats strikingly similar to Kenny. You both eat like 13-year-olds who got vending machine money from their parents when they left the house. Like specifically, what vegetable did you eat, Matt?
It was celery.
That's a real vegetable. Okay, good for you.
Does it count that it was packed with peanut butter? Does that ruin it?
Oh, that's fine.
See, and I'm a salad guy. I dig me some salad.
I'm not a big fan of celery. I mean, it's cool. I don't not like it. It's not like peas or something like that. Like I hate peas.
Oh, peas are gross. Cool.
But Damien, you sound crazy, boy. I be eating I eat my vegetables. I love broccoli. Love broccoli.
Oh, gross. Terrible.
Nah, you sound crazy, man. I love me some broccoli.
Go bite into a top of trees.
Corn. I love spinach.
There you go. Cooked or raw?
Cooked.
Okay, that's cap. No one loves kale. We eat kale because it's good for us. No one loves
it. It's good.
Kale's
you gotta cook it though. Raw kale is tough.
Maybe I had
raw kale is tough. Like you have to work to make raw kale good. Like you've got to cut it really small. You actually have to wring raw kale. So like if you're gonna make a kale salad, you cut it really small. And then you grab it and you squeeze it, and squeezing it brings the moisture into it. Otherwise, it's like eating chopped up paper.
I don't know what
Not that I've ever eaten chopped up paper, but I can imagine.
Chopped up paper. I don't know what Jazz did to it, but it was good. I like it every time she makes it.
I did my best, Kenny, and I came in and completely derailed things in the first couple of minutes. So I'm happy to do it for you guys.
Well, actually, it started with a question about the baby, but the truth is, the second we brought you on, we got to talking about the Kings, and this was during the commercial break. And Matt joined us a couple of minutes early and was catching up on the end of our conversation, and we, made a crack about Nemanja Bjelica, as we regularly do here on this program. And you were like, hey. I don't know that I'm willing to appear on D-Lo and KC if all of this Nemanja Bjelica slander. But you were getting ready. You were headed somewhere. The conversation kind of went from Belly to Bogey and some thoughts on Vlade and Peja and all of these different things. But you were going somewhere right as the commercial break was ending. So now that we've caught everybody up on what we were talking about, I'm curious where you were going there.
Yeah, so we were talking about like Bogey in Atlanta, and had Bogey not gotten the stage and been a starter on a playoff team that turned some heads in Atlanta, would we have felt the same way or had that same remorse of seeing Bogdanović leave and had so many?
Which not all of us had, by the way.
Right. Well, most of us had, but you brought up like Bogey missed 30 games or something like that with injury. And it reminded me of something that's been floating around in my head for a while. And I've talked about it a little bit on the Locked On Kings podcast, but I want to be careful to make it not a negative or looking for a negative out of Richaun Holmes, because I'm a huge fan of Richaun Holmes. But if Marvin Bagley weren't on this roster, or if Marvin Bagley didn't have the injury issues that he's had, would the Sacramento Kings fan base be more frustrated with Richaun Holmes? Because Holmes has missed a significant chunk of time in both seasons that he's been here in Sacramento, not to Bagley levels, but he's missed a lot of time that I think has been overshadowed just by the amount of time that his front court partner in Marvin Bagley's been out.
I'll tell you this, Matt, and I'll answer it this way. We will be now.
That's it.
We weren't when it was two years.
That's right. Yep.
But we will be now.
Yep.
If it's the same situation that goes on moving forward. I hope it doesn't, but the injury concerns for Richaun Holmes they're fair and they're legit.
Yeah.
So that leads to another interesting question about Richaun Holmes then, because I think we can all agree that the Kings got Richaun Holmes on a good deal, right? They're paying him a lot more than they were. But if Richaun maybe only gets a tiny bit better, or for the most part gives you that same consistent everyday production that we've grown to love out of Richaun Holmes, but he doesn't get very much better. Like he doesn't really improve as a rim protector. He doesn't improve as a floor spacer. Is he not outplaying his contract, or is he not playing up to his contract at that point? Does he need to get better to justify the money that the Kings gave him?
I don't think he needs to. I think he needs to to fit with what you said a moment ago. He needs to stay healthy. I think if he continues to play the way, because to me, for what you signed him for, which I think we all agree is fantastic. Like you couldn't have signed Richaun Holmes for a better contract. If Monty signed that with the thought of, okay, you got a big boy deal here. Now we need you to change your game completely. You know your biggest weakness, get better at it. Yeah. That's probably a poor strategy. Now, certainly there are players that you do with it, and quite honestly, De'Aaron Fox is probably one of them. We're talking two very different contracts with Richaun Holmes and De'Aaron Fox, but I don't think it's like, okay, De'Aaron, go lead the league in 3-point shooting. But when you sign this 5-year, up to $190 million extension, there are elements of your game that, of course, we want to get better. That's not the same type of thing Richaun Holmes signed. We all want Richaun Holmes to get better, but if Richaun Holmes is on the floor performing the way that he did last year for 75 games this season, I'm very, very happy.
I think I am too. And Kenny, I think it's also like, I heard a lot of people say when evaluating whether or not the Kings should pay Richaun Holmes this summer, a lot of people were saying, well, if Richaun Holmes is the starting center on your basketball team, you're probably not a very good team. Or if Richaun Holmes is the starting center on your team, you're probably not a team that can go deep in the playoffs. That's where I think the next step is for Richaun, is that he can be a consistent everyday starting center, compete at a high level with this team making the play-in or the playoffs. That's what's next for him, really, to earn that contract, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like what Damian said, exactly like what Damian said, to be honest with you. If I'm Monty McNair and I'm signing Richaun Holmes, it's to sign him to do exactly what he's doing right now. It would be great if he gets better as a scorer, as a floor spacer, or anything like that. But if for the next 4 years, he gives me that 14-7 or 14-8 or whatever the case may be, then it was a good signing. That's the way I'd be looking at it, because for better or for worse, I'm not expecting him to improve his game offensively. The things that he does on the defensive end, I mean, to my knowledge, he's done growing. Okay, he's not getting any taller. He's not going to, he might get buffer or stronger, but he can't do anything about his height. So he's going to be a little undersized at that position for the rest of his career. So I don't expect any of that to change. The thing that I remember I was talking about
Richaun Holmes has returned from camp. He's now 6'10".
And he's put on 10 pounds of muscle, right?
Yeah, of course.
He got absolutely. Actually, I saw Richaun Holmes pictures yesterday. So it's looking in shape, looking good.
Did he get drug tested after posting them?
He might be, because he's looking good. But I remember I was talking about this with Damian when we were trying to figure out how much money Richaun should be offered, what would be a fair deal. And I can't remember. It was probably, I think there was 3 centers. It was, I remember Capella was one of them. And I was like, is he better than Capella? Or are they about the same? We looked and Capella was better. And I was like, okay, Capella's good. But the other one was Miles Turner. Oh, and the other one was Steven Adams. And Richaun Holmes was like way better than those two last year. And remember, we all were like, yo, I'd spend $20 million on Miles Turner. Like, we were like, we'd take Miles Turner. A lot of people in the city. Richaun Holmes was way better than Miles Turner. Way better. I think he has the capability, with him being at the starting center, to be a starting center for a good team, for a playoff team, a postseason team. Just everything else around him got to get a little better.
Yeah.
I think there's really just 3 things that I'm asking from Richaun Holmes this year. Continue that amazing push shot that everybody loves. Stay healthy, and then block a few more shots. As much as I'd love to see him space the floor and add that to his game, and I've seen him working on it. I know you guys have been courtside during warm-ups watching. He works on it a ton, and in warm-ups, it looks really good. And it was funny going from his first year with the Kings to last year, We heard Luke Walton say, we're encouraging him to take that shot a little bit more. But what Luke didn't say is we're encouraging him to do it when it's late in the shot clock and we got to get a shot up. I'd like to see it become, no, we want you to put up 2 of those a game in rhythm, not because we need to get that shot up to beat the shot clock. So,
it's funny. We've talked about the never-ending conversation of De'Aaron taking another step. We've done that a lot with Tyrese Halliburton too, as Tyrese gets ready to enter his second season. But I think this is a good way to start the conversation, Matt, is, Richaun Holmes next year. Like he was a big piece of this offseason. He was a big part of what the Sacramento Kings were setting out to do or setting out to accomplish when this offseason got here. It's like, how is this Richaun Holmes thing going to work out? Obviously, we want him here. It was clear that the Kings wanted him here at the trade deadline. I got to imagine Monty had some semblance of confidence that he was going to be able to keep him here. I don't know what Monty's breaking point would be, and thankfully we never had to find out. But I do think it's an interesting question to pose. What are Monty McNair's expectations? Like, now you're not a cute little story, right? Now that you're not the guy who was signed after the guy. You're not the man behind the man. You're not the guy who came in on the cheap contract when the $40 million guy got his money or whatever contract Dwayne Dedmon had. You're and took his job, 2 games into the season. Like, you're the guy now. I do wonder, I know from a fan's perspective, expectations change. I wonder from a Monty McNair perspective, what his expectations are for Richaun Holmes.
I think for one, Monty made the smart move by gambling to play the market, and it worked out in his favor with Richaun Holmes, which many of us said he should consider doing, because one, big men free agency market is always weird, and we knew that not too many teams were going to have a lot of money. So really the Kings were worried about like 1 or 2 teams. Dallas was one of them, and it was Washington the other. I can't remember who the other was. So
Charlotte was in there.
Charlotte, that's what
Charlotte just started getting big men. It was like, well, they're clearly out of the Richaun Holmes conversation.
So Monty gambled and it worked out for him to get Richaun on the contract. But I agree with what KC said. I think the Kings are basically paying Richaun Holmes to be the same. Like, I don't think they can get away. I mean, he can't get away with getting any worse, even if the regression is slight, because this team is trying to trend upward. And if your starting center is trending down, that's not a good thing. So I don't expect vast improvement. I don't think Monty McNair would expect vast improvement. The one thing I think that Monty should expect, as should all fans expect, is now that you've gotten paid, the effort that you play with that got you this far, that doesn't stop. If anything, hopefully that picks up. Like, you don't want to see, and I'm a fan of Willie Cauley-Stein. I liked Willie Cauley-Stein a lot more than Kings fans did, but I don't want to see the Richaun Holmes get more of a Willie Cauley-Stein lazy. Well, I got to be careful there, but like kind of low energy, laid back approach to the game now that he's got his money. No, you got paid and you've got this far by being that energy guy. That can't go anywhere.
And Matt, I don't mean to speak for you, but I'm pretty sure I speak for you and Damian when I say I don't think that's a concern at all with Richaun Holmes. That's the way he plays is just in his DNA. He only knows one way to play. So I don't think that'll be the case at all. And that'll be a good thing for Kings and Kings fans, because I know, like you mentioned, Matt, they really just love the way he approaches the game. And I don't think that's going to change at all. Matt, we have a question that we've been asking, I think, 7 straight weeks to James Ham here on Wednesdays. He's not here today. He's on vacation, champagning and campaigning somewhere. Big ups to James Ham. So we'll ask you, opening night, Marvin Bagley, Buddy Hield on the roster?
I'm going to go with the James Ham approach, and I'm going to say yes, which, by the way, if I'm replacing James Ham, I hope your guys' ratings are doing okay, but I hope he's enjoying his vacation. I heard you earlier on the show, D'Lo. You should have texted him anyway, asking him the same question just to see if he'd like block you or not. But
I don't think he would. The problem is, I think he'd answer me and start like getting in a text exchange, and I feel like his wife would kill him and then kill me, and then we would like because James never. I don't know the last time James Ham took any time off. So I made the joke. Oh, James Ham. Oh, so he's like, yeah, we're going to I think he said Maui or the beach or something. I was like, so you're gonna just do the show by the ocean. And you could see him like, well, and it's like, no, James, we're not going to do that. You're going to take the time off. We'll see when you get back. But I was afraid if I text the line to him that he would respond, and I don't want him to respond.
Every time I have James on the Locked On Kings podcast, I carve out the 20 to 30 minutes that he's actually going to be on the air, plus another 20 to 30 minutes after where we'll just talk. And, and that's who James is. He likes to talk and he likes to share his expertise, but also ask you questions and talk to you about everything. So James is incredible. I hope he's enjoying his vacation. But yeah, I think Marvin Bagley and De'Aaron, well, I know De'Aaron will be, and Buddy Hield will be on the Sacramento Kings roster come day one. And I don't know if both of those guys will be on the roster. In fact, I hope at least one of those guys is off the roster by the trade deadline. But as much as I'm still keeping hope alive for some kind of Ben Simmons deal, and now I've seen people talking about a 3-team trade involving Houston and John Wall going to the Philadelphia 76ers, and could the Kings get involved in that to still land Ben Simmons? So we can keep that hope alive, but all signs point to the two of them being on the Kings. And in the case of Buddy Hield, I don't think that's as bad of a thing as I thought it would be at the start of the offseason.
Mindset's everything in my estimation, because I don't think he's the starting 2 guard on this team. So depending on where his head, or maybe hell, you know, one thing we haven't considered, or let me not speak for anyone. One thing I haven't considered, maybe he comes in, maybe it is Tyrese's job. Maybe Buddy comes in and takes it. I know that I'm using the creative side of my brain here today, but shoot, I don't think it's that crazy of a sentiment.
I think it's more than likely.
Maybe it is.
I think it's more likely Buddy starts at the 3 and you move Harrison Barnes to the 4 and try and figure that out. But I don't like the idea, but I think that's more likely.
There we go again.
I still stand by my curiosity and skepticism with what happened last season. I know we've talked about this before, but Buddy had a significantly longer leash last year than he had in the first year under Luke Walton, and got away with a lot more last year than he did in the first year. And I have to think there was some kind of agreement in place, and I can't imagine that agreement going away unless Monty steps forward or someone steps forward and says, look, Tyrese Halliburton is our future. He's our starting 2. Buddy, you can either earn the 3 spot, figure it out, or deal with it, man. You're a 6th man and play better, and we might try and trade you. Like,
by the way, you're a really good 6th man.
Yep. But it's optics, right? It's optics of not being in the starting lineup. It's optics of not being one of the best players on a bad basketball team, which is why I thought like Buddy going to LA would be really good for him. And even Buddy going to Philly would be really good for him, because he's going to a place where their best players are established and he knows that he's a complementary piece. Here in Sacramento, he could argue, no, I'm still one of the top dogs here on a bad basketball team because I get my numbers. And when I'm on, this team wins. Well, no duh. When everybody's on, this team wins.
You're not on enough.
Yeah, you're not on enough. And even when you are on, they're not winning that much. The only optics that I'm worried about is the standings. All right. That's the optics that I'm worried about. And Buddy Hield, I would tell him like this, like if you got him here, or whatever the agreement is, hey, you started here, we're going to still be looking to trade you, whatever. I would tell him, at the beginning of the season, if I was Luke or Monty, I'd be like, look, this is what we're trying to do. All right. We're trying to make the playoffs. If you're part of that, that's great. If you're not, and we're winning, then you're not. If you can't accept that, then we should just send you home now until we can work out a trade. Because we don't have time for all this pouting and all this. I need everybody on the same page. And then if you're not on the same page, if you got your own agenda, you can take that home and we'll work on trading you. Simple as that.
Well, question in the back.
Yeah.
Who's saying that?
Luke and Monty. They can sit them down.
That don't sound like Luke Walton to me.
It needs to be Luke.
It might need to be, but that don't sound like him.
He might have tried in year 1 and it never came to fruition. But I tend to more agree with D'Lo.
He tried and he did in year 1. Well, at least he benched him.
Maybe Luke is a big professional wrestling fan and he's just working us. Maybe he's this hard-nosed dude behind the scenes and he's just this say nothing in front of the maybe it's all a work.
To be honest,
maybe he won't break kayfabe.
To your point, Damian, the players seem to say that.
Yeah, I think Richaun said that. Well,
like, yo, Luke will curse us out in a heartbeat. And, everybody knows the Richaun Holmes story about him being, hot after Luke Walton being hot, with these guys being on the phone after a loss and all this other stuff. It seems to be who the players see him to be, at least from time to time. I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate or it takes a whole lot to get to that point. I don't know.
I just need Luke to go Paul Heyman one time in one press conference for us. Just one Paul Heyman type promo just to give us something to gush about so we know that it exists. Then he can go back to his calm, quiet, low voice demeanor. But Casey, I will say what's changed for me the most over the course of a year is now I'm a whole hell of a lot more willing to put up with those buddy arguments and that buddy pouting and figure that out a lot more than I am willing to figure that stuff out with Marvin Bagley. A year ago, it was completely flip-flopped. It's like, I'll work with Marvin to figure it out for him. Buddy, I'm at the end of my rope with. It's completely flipped with me because now it's like, buddy, okay, let's figure this out because you have an elite skill that we can use. Marvin, I mean, God.
See, I'll go on the opposite side with this one, Matt, because I don't think I've had this conversation with you. And we'll have it right now. I'm on the opposite end because I'm looking at Buddy Hield. I don't need you. I don't need you. I got Davion Mitchell. I'm the only one in Sacramento that seems to feel this way. I got Terrence Davis, who's better than you. That's all the minutes I need. I got Halliburton. I got Fox. I don't need you, buddy. I look down that roster and I look at that starting lineup and I look at Marvin Bagley. He ain't got no power forward.
See, I understand that argument for positional purposes, but if I'm Monty McNair, I'm looking at Marvin Bagley, the player, and saying, I don't need a tunnel-visioned, terrible defender who puts up empty stats. Like, I don't need that. You can find a lot of those guys in free agency. Now, not maybe with the upset.
Because you don't have one. You don't have nothing else to go find them. If you can go find them, go do it. But right now, you don't have them.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's where I'm at with Marvin is Marvin needs to earn this spot. And I think you guys were talking about this a little earlier in your 49ers conversation. Like Marvin needs to earn that spot. So I would be completely against, just for positional purposes, the Kings starting Marvin at the 4 on opening night. Like I'd rather bring him off the bench, have him destroy second units, which he should if he stays healthy, prove that he can stay healthy, then become available, which makes him reliable, and then start talking about incorporating him back into the core and back into the starting lineup and starting there. But right now, if I'm Monty and I'm comparing Buddy Hield to Marvin, even if one is a positional need and the other isn't, I know I can rely on Buddy to hit shots. I know what his deficiencies are and how to somewhat work around them because Dave Yeager was able to. And then number 3, I know that that Buddy's going to be able to suit up and play basically on a nightly basis.
He does do that.
Guys, they're both going to be on the Kings forever. So just stop it. Just stop, both of you. Matt George of the Locked On Kings podcast with us here on D-Lo and KC on Twitch, on YouTube, on the Odyssey app, and on 1320 AM. Did you happen to catch the Bleacher Report redrafts coming out in the recent days? And there's a lot that can be said for all of them. It's one guy putting out some content, more power to him. But that 2017 one was pretty interesting with Bam Adebayo, John Collins, and Lonzo Ball all being drafted before De'Aaron Fox went to Orlando at 6.
What was the bigger waste of time, that article or the recall election?
Man, it's close. It's close. It's one wasted a bunch of money. Well, no, they both wasted a bunch of time. Yeah, it's close.
Yeah,
close.
I said in the opening segment of my podcast yesterday before I got to my conversation with
Matt George getting political. Look at him fitting right in here. Nice job, buddy. Go ahead.
Wasn't me. Cut that out. Don't post that on social media. I was talking with Josh Lloyd, Locked On Fantasy Basketball host, yesterday, and we talked about this a little bit. But before I got to my conversation with him, I talked very briefly about that. And basically, one of the things that I said, which is really boring for sports talk radio, so I'm not going to have the same approach here, is I didn't want to spend more than a couple minutes on that because it wasn't worth my time. Like it just made it very clear that I don't even know the name of the guy who is it, Andy or whatever.
It's
who wrote
Andy Bailey. We are familiar with him. It's
Andy I know Bailey. Both of you guys trying to get him on the show. Which, by the way, I was listening to your opening segment when you're talking about that, and I understand Andy's concern because every time I come on the air, D'Lo wants to kick my ass. So
that's not true. That hasn't happened in At least a month.
A week.
At least a month.
A week.
It hasn't happened since the last Locked On Kings podcast.
Well,
well, okay, maybe not.
I'll take what I can get. But like all things considered, you can tell Andy doesn't watch the Sacramento Kings play. You can tell he doesn't watch De'Aaron Fox play. Like, on what planet does anybody think? And I didn't even focus that much on John Collins. It was really the focus on Lonzo Ball, because since De'Aaron was drafted, we've talked about how De'Aaron is a better player. Lonzo Ball was drafted ahead of De'Aaron Fox and went to LA because of hype that his father created for him. All power to LeVar Ball and what he was able to do, and it didn't work out in LA, but you got your son to be a number 2 overall pick. Congratulations. De'Aaron Fox was the better player then. He showed it in college. De'Aaron Fox is above and beyond the better player right now. So on what planet do you not only think that Lonzo Ball still goes higher than De'Aaron Fox, but on what planet do you think that if Fox falls to the Kings again at 5, Sacramento doesn't take him? It blew my mind.
It's incompetence. It's incompetence. And look, I understand when people say, player X changes culture and he makes people better. And we talk about Chris Paul and stuff all the time. The Chris Pauls, they're special for a reason. They are looked at as true culture changers for a reason. If it was common, if it was something that everybody can do, then it wouldn't be that special. So when people sit and they look at De'Aaron Fox and they're like, well, he hasn't won anything, he's not making anybody better. Look, you can't just wave a magic wand or make a perfect chest pass and all of a sudden Buddy Hield's going to make every shot he takes. Like, it don't work that way. I think people put too much stock in the whole thing of he hasn't won anything. No, the Kings haven't won anything. All right. De'Aaron Fox was extremely successful at Kentucky when he had some of the other great players in the country around him. Comes to Sacramento, it hasn't been as smooth. We all understand that, but that does not take away from the player that he has and what he's accomplished individually in this league. The Hawks aren't going to the Eastern Conference Finals because they got John Collins. The Miami Heat aren't going to the NBA Finals.
No, they didn't even offer John Collins an extension during the season. We thought John Collins might be out of Atlanta.
Right.
I thought they did, but he said that he wasn't going to accept it. Or maybe they never offered it because they knew he wasn't going to accept it because he wanted a max deal.
I thought that maybe that's it. They wanted him for a bargain. I'm sorry. Did Monty and De'Aaron haggle and I missed it?
Nope. Back up the truck. Here you go, De'Aaron. You're getting paid.
There was no haggling there.
You two had a conversation here that I absolutely loved during the playoffs when the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant were playing really well, and Ja was averaging 30 points in the postseason, and everyone's like, oh, this is Ja Morant, the star. The future of the Grizzlies is so bright because Ja Morant is this superstar. And I know we've compared and had so many conversations. There have been so many comparisons really for the last 2 years that Ja's been in the league between De'Aaron and Ja. And I'm wondering if both those players are going, why are we getting pulled into this? Like, we had nothing to do with this. There's no rivalry between the two of us like there was between Lonzo and De'Aaron in college. But the two of you talked about if De'Aaron Fox had the platform, had that stage, the play-in tournament, playoffs, doesn't matter, had that stage to perform like Ja got the opportunity to turn heads, De'Aaron would have turned more heads. And I've said from the very beginning that if De'Aaron played in most other markets, if De'Aaron played not even like in a good, like for a good team like LA, the Lakers, or for the Brooklyn Nets or whatever, if De'Aaron played in Chicago, like he would be 10 times more of a household name than he is here in Sacramento, because people don't watch De'Aaron Fox play because they don't want to watch Kings basketball because they associate Kings basketball with bad. And to some extent, rightfully so. That's why guys like Andy probably aren't going to watch Kings basketball until they get that play-in or playoff opportunity to where it's on prime time and it's right in front of you and you really can't miss it. And that's where a lot of people are going to see what De'Aaron Fox is really about.
And to that point, like I tell Damian, like I tell everybody, guys like Andy, guys like David Aldridge, they shouldn't be let off the hook. Like I said a number of different times, it's 2021. First of all, it's your job. You cover the NBA. So it's your job to cover all 32 NBA teams, not just, or 30 NBA teams. It's not just a Laker Nets league. So it's your job. Number two, if you want to talk about, I don't want to stay up all late. Like I said, 2021, you can get up in the morning. You can watch a 30-minute condensed game. There's other ways to consume it. Number three, they don't play inter squad scrimmages every day. All right. You can watch the Kings play against Steph Curry. You can watch the Kings play against LeBron James. They play on the East Coast 15 times throughout the year. You can watch De'Aaron Fox if you want to. And the last one, why the hell would I want to watch the New Orleans Pelicans? But people always Zion, Brandon Ingram. That ain't no enjoyable team to watch. They stink. They were a disaster. But don't nobody talk about that with about the platform and getting on the stage with Zion. Zion up there in the top 15 when you rank them and all this other stuff. So we got to. I'm gonna stop giving these guys passes for the weak excuses they make for not doing their job, for not doing the homework.
Yeah, and I want to address something really quick in the YouTube chat. Sorry, D-Lo, but Roddy saying that one of the things, his favorite things about Fox is that he doesn't care about stuff like that. I can 100% promise you he cares. And he uses that as motivation. De'Aaron Fox pays attention to that. He's responded to stuff like that before. He doesn't actively seek it out like some players do, but I promise you De'Aaron Fox cares. He's not going to harp on it. He's hopefully not going to bring it up and talk about it a ton, like to the media or anything like that. But Fox pays attention to that stuff. He wants that respect. He fights for that respect. I promise you De'Aaron Fox cares about that.
Also, for the crew over there on youtube.com/ESPN1320, we posted a poll question for you to take part in. So you could head over to youtube.com/ESPN1320 and take part in that poll question. Matt, you mentioned that you heard the beginning of the show. We got off, of course, Kenny. We were headed to Disneyland. Kenny was like, screw it, let's go to Disney World. So we headed in a completely different direction. But we started talking about, they're airing this Mets 30 for 30, this 86 Mets 30 for 30. And we kind of got to talking about, and we're all aware of the obvious documentary on the Sacramento Kings, but what moment in Kings history? And we came up with a lot of them. Would you love for cameras to be rolling on and you could get like an honest discussion about?
I love this question. I actually saw you tweet something out about this. So I did my homework and I was thinking about this ahead of time. I was actually thinking about it on my drive home today. And like, I've got the title, I've got how this thing starts, and I got mainly what it focuses on. And it's not specifically a team. It's more a period of time.
Matt is like the guy who came up with the dramatic Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, Massa Hustler. He about that money. He about that paper, boss.
So I would watch the crap out of this, but the title doesn't even have letters in it, okay? The title is just 3 emojis. A grass emoji, a snake emoji, and a grass emoji again. And this thing opens. The first shot is the day Mike Malone gets fired. And it is just everything from that point until George Karl is fired. All of that mess in between of the conflict between Boogie and George going to the Kings, asking for the Kings to suspend DeMarcus after going off on George Vlade and the Kings refusing to do it, siding with DeMarcus, George saying the things that he said publicly, the interactions that they had privately, and the fact that when I had George Karl on the podcast on Locked On Kings a while ago, one of the things that he said that I thought was really interesting is George just shared he didn't know why that team didn't win when they had Rajon Rondo, DeMarcus Cousins, and Rudy Gay on the roster at the same time. He didn't understand why that team wasn't winning games. So that entire period, if there is hidden cameras and secret information and Boogie tells his story, George tells his story, Vlade tells his story, and we just get all the behind the scenes drama of that, man, I would watch the absolute crap out of that.
That'd be some good stuff.
How would you promote it? Like coming up next on ESPN, it's
almost like DeMarcus's future with the Kings and Hall of Fame status was trending in the right direction. Malone was fired. Hall of Fame coach comes in, and DeMarcus's opportunities in Sacramento are history. It was almost like the rise and fall of DeMarcus Cousins.
No. I get that, but the Michael Jordan documentary was called The Last Dance. Tune in tonight for The Last Dance. How does Greeny tune in tonight for
Snake in the Grass?
Snake in the Grass. Okay, there you go. I was going to say, tune in tonight for grass emoji, snake emoji, grass emoji. That's good stuff.
That's serpent that poisoned the Kings organization. I don't know. I'm not that anti-George Karl. That seems like more an anti-George Karl thing, but really we know George was at the center of all of it. So I'd be interested in that.
That was definitely one we talked. I like the idea of that one. I think that's a good one.
But there there are also a ton too. I know you're talking about Ricky Berry. You guys were talking about that earlier too. Like there's a ton of things that happened with the Sacramento Kings before I was born that I'd be interested in, like the original Arco. And I think there was a game in the original Arco when the Kings defeated Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics, and the place absolutely went bonkers. And that's when the team was absolutely terrible. So I'd watch stuff like that, like to learn more history of the Kings. And then of course there's like famous moments in the Arco, which was when, I'm blanking on the original owner's name, but when he went up and like tied the flag to stop the leak in the roof during a live game and stuff like that. Like there's plenty of stuff with the Kings that I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Let's
go. Let's make it.
I think that, man, don't say that. This clip gets back to James Ham. James Ham probably would wait a minute. We could do this. James Ham got everybody on speed dial. We can make this happen. I think there are some good ones out there. I think DeMarcus would be a good focus for something that you could do.
If you want to, Kings. You could make it about DeMarcus and Vlade and the rise and fall of their relationship, and just call it Betrayal, a Sacramento Kings story.
Well, so like my idea was one of my DeMarcus ideas was the 2-week period in which he was a $200 million King to when he became a New Orleans Pelican. New Orleans Pelican. I don't know why I made New Orleans singular in that situation, but
just the one.
New Orleans.
Just the one New Orleans. So is it New Orleans or New Orleans?
New Orleans.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Orleans.
Orleans? This is confirmed? New Orleans, not New Orleans.
Yeah, I think it's
New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
The New Orleans Pelicans. Like, is this a geographical thing? I don't understand.
Speaking of geography, Matt, is Elk Grove a borough?
Oh, for God's sakes, Matt! What borough do you live in, Matt? Are you a Sacramento guy?
I am in the borough of North Highlands.
Okay,
that
might be a borough. That might be an actual borough right there.
We're in a good spot. We're okay. We like what we do. The best part about North Highlands, the best part about our neighborhood is 4th of July is lit. Like 4th of July is nuts in our neighborhood.
You don't have dogs, do you?
Well, we used to, but no, not anymore. And I do understand the dog argument, but yeah, it's a war zone in our neighborhood.
Thanks for
and
Matt.
If you look at me, some things are unsaid, but I stand out in our neighborhood in some ways.
Yes, you do. All right. That right there sums up today's show beautifully. Thanks for